All right. Again, good morning to everybody. This is our first meeting in PMOC or OrgMeds. At this juncture, we will start with Module 1, and this talks about Introduction to Pharmaceutical and Medicinal Organic Chemistry. In particular, this module is divided into two lessons. So let me introduce to you the two lessons that are covered under Module 1. So first lesson, this is all about basic principles. Okay? This is all about basic principles to organic medicinal chemistry. So I will give you some insights about the field, gaano ba siya kaimportante sa ating practice sa pharmacy para mas maintindihan nyo siya sa deeper aspects. Okay? And then second, we shall have a review, okay, review of the functional groups, ay functional groups. Of course, you were able to encounter functional groups sa inyong organic chemistry course. Kaya nga prerequisite ng org-meds rather, ang org-chem kasi importante ang mga functional groups because basically, these are the ones that drugs have. Okay? Kaya may review tayo dyan. Actually, hindi na siya bare discussion, form of supplementation na lang siya. So I will give you some details about lesson 2 later. So right now, we will focus on basic principles of organic medicinal chemistry. So first, just to trigger your thoughts about the lesson, did you know that according to the drug bank, there are about 14,315 drugs available worldwide? As you can tell, this is a huge number. So napakaraming drugs available in the market. So libo-libo sila. So the next question that will come in your mind is, sinong gumagawa or sinong gumawa ng 14,000 plus drugs na ito? Who make those drugs? Of course, those are scientists. And scientists have their particular inclinations or fields of expertise. In particular, those scientists who make drugs are so-called medicinal chemists. That is where medicinal chemistry comes into play. So by that, we can now define the field medicinal chemistry. This is a branch of chemistry that deals with the identification, design, synthesis, and development of so-called biologically active compounds. When we say biologically active compounds, these are chemical compounds. Okay, these are actually chemical compounds that can target our biological system. Okay, these are compounds that can target our biological systems, thus producing effect. Okay, thus producing effect. When we say compounds producing effects, these are the ones that can alter the physiological actions that are happening in the body. Okay? In other words, again, in other words, ang tawag natin sa mga biologically active compounds, drugs. Okay? Drugs. So yan po ang ibig sabihin ng biologically active compounds or simply drugs. Can you follow so far? Hmm? O, kaya kailangan keyboard warriors dito. Kailangan sulat, type. So ganito ang magiging style natin for the whole learning block. Very good. So yan ang ibig sabihin ng drugs. So taken all together in medicinal chemistry, this involves identification, synthesis, and development of drugs. Kaya meron tayong 14,000 plus drugs in the market because of medicinal chemistry. That's the importance of the field medchem. Okay? Now, ang medicinal chemistry is an interesting field or interesting field of science because it can radiate, it links with other fields or disciplines. Like for example, organic chemistry, biochem, computational chemistry, pharmacology, pharmacognosy, molecular biology, and physical chemistry. That's why we need medicinal chemistry in order to appreciate other pharmacy courses. So when you had your organic chemistry during first year, perhaps wala kayong idea anong importance ng mga structures. Dito nyo sila ma-appreciate. You had biochem. Ang biochem, last semester lang yan. I am telling you, gamit na gamit ang biochem natin ngayon. Kaya may mga review questions ako sa mga tasks later on about biochem. Kaya kung meron kayong mga notes sa biochem, i-retrieve nyo na sila. Gamit na gamit dito. And of course, organic chem. Okay? Pharmacology is also important because this focuses on drug actions and effects. Pharmacognosy is also essential because there are drugs that come from natural sources like plants. Kaya important ang pharmacognosy and of course other related fields. Kaya nga this is an interesting course because it links to or it collaborates with other fields of sciences. Okay? So that's what we mean by medicinal chemistry. Now, when we go back to the definition of drugs, remember, drugs are the ones that produce effects. Okay? Now, since the core of medicinal chemistry is discovery of drugs, we should know more about drugs. Kailangan malaman natin kung anong ibig sabihin ng gamot. Kasi dyan natin may extract kung ano ba yung medchem as a field. Okay? Remember that drugs, these are chemical substances, particularly these are low molecular weight chemical substances that could interact in the body. Okay? That could interact in the body. And by that, drugs could now produce physiological effects inside our body. Okay? So yan yung definition ng gamot. Now, for drugs to produce an effect, they usually find their targets inside of us. So when we say targets, these are biological molecules in the form of proteins, or nucleic acids, in the form of proteins or in the form of nucleic acids. So these are often the targets by drugs. Okay? So yan yung ibig sabihin ng gamot. Ang gamot, babaguhin niya ang pangyayari sa ating katawan by interacting with biological molecules, particularly proteins and also nucleic acids. Okay? Can we proceed on the next slide? Yes, okay, very good. So when we analyze the definition of drugs, we can infer that there is a close relationship between drug and body. Okay? There is a close relationship between them. Particularly, there is a close relationship between drug and body because for a drug to produce an effect, okay, for a drug to produce an effect, it must be powerful enough, and it must be selective enough to target proteins and nucleic acids. Again, it must be powerful and also selective enough para siya ay makapag-target ng entities like proteins and nucleic acids inside the body. Okay? Now, yes, drugs are powerful and selective. However, the next question is how? Okay, how will the drug reach the body? Paano siya makakarating? Of course, for a drug to reach the body should interact well with the drug. Okay? So it must interact well. So that's why by relating drug to body and vice versa, we have two connected fields or concepts that we must drink in. Number one, for drug going to body concept, yung powerful and selective interaction ng drug sa ating katawan, we must consider the field called pharmacodynamics. Okay? We must consider the field called pharmacodynamics. Again, when we consider drug to body, okay? The way a drug interacts with the body is dynamics. On the other hand, when the body interacts with the drug, the way the body accepts the drug, pag the other way around, ang tawag natin doon ay pharmacokinetics. Okay? Pharmacokinetics. Kaya important concepts ito sa medicinal chemistry as well. Okay? So ang body to drug, what the body does to the drug, that is pharmacokinetics. So that's the difference between the two. Narinig niyo na ba yung terms na ito before? Yung dynamics and kinetics? Okay, nice. So siguro na-encounter niyo na siya before. So that's why i-discuss natin briefly yung dalawang fields. Although sa pharmacology, mamimension din ito. Okay? So first stop, let's have pharmacodynamics. Ano nga sabi natin about dynamics? Is it drug to body or body to drug? Go. D to B or B to D? Very good. Drug to body. Nice. Okay, that's nice. So in pharmacodynamics, it has a question of what the drug does to the body. Remember, class, that drug drug targets the body for it to produce an effect. Okay, for it to produce an effect. However, we must realize that it is not only the drug that interacts with the body, because we have the so-called natural compounds, or endogenous compounds that interact with the body. So these endogenous compounds are our body's own natural chemicals. Like for example, neurotransmitters. These are natural compounds. Pag sinabing natural, ginagawa ng ating katawan. Okay? They interact with our targets like proteins and nucleic acids. And aside from that, hormones. Okay? And aside from hormones, you also have otacoids, okay? The compounds called otacoids. So ito yung mga common endogenous substances na nakikipag-interact with molecular targets. Now, in designing drugs by medicinal chemists, they usually synthesize drugs that would at least resemble the structures of these endogenous compounds. So we have, for exogenous compounds, these are foreign substances like drugs. So ang technical term natin for foreign substances or drugs sa ating katawan pag nakapasok, synobiotics. Okay? Synobiotics ang tawag doon. So yan po ang difference ng endogenous at exogenous. Natural, and then we have foreign. But both can interact with targets. Okay? Now, anong sabi natin kanina in considering interaction of drug to body? Para mag-produce ng effect ang isang gamot, dapat ang gamot ay P. Ano yung P? Anong sabi natin kanina? The drug must be powerful enough. Okay, powerful. And S, what does S mean? It must be selective enough. Yes. So I will emphasize further these terms mamaya. Okay? Moving on. Pwede na tayo sa next slide, guys. Okay. Pasensya na, may konting revision ako sa PowerPoint pero minimal lang naman sila. Nire-arrange ko lang yung flow pero same contents lang naman. Okay? Recall, guys, for a drug to produce an effect or response inside our body, it has a target in the form of either proteins and nucleic acids. However, we must realize that it depends on the quality of the drug kung ano ang magiging effect. It could be therapeutic. A therapeutic, when we say therapeutic, the drug is powerful and selective. Okay? Okay siya. However, in some cases, if there are uncertainties and also problems with designing the drug, there could be subtherapeutic, meaning the drug is less powerful. Okay, less powerful, kaya siya ay mababa ang effect. And moreover, there could be a tendency that a drug, okay, that the drug is less selective. Pag sinabing less selective, it does not target its specific protein at meron pang ibang tina-target. Okay? That's why it becomes toxic. Okay? That's why in designing a drug, we must select this part. Okay? We must select this. That is, the goal in dynamics is to design a drug that would interact as powerfully, meaning to say, therapeutic ang effect, and selective, meaning meron siyang desired protein or nucleic acid na tatargetin para hindi madama yung iba. That's why less toxic. So yan ang importance ng pharmacodynamics. Okay? The drug must be powerful and selective enough. So it's challenging kasi ang daming mga studies na dapat gawin upang mag-come up tayo sa gamot na powerful and selective. And seldom yung mga gamot na nakakakuha ng ganitong attributes agad-agad. Kaya it will take a longer time. Kaya imagine nyo yung gamot na available in the market na 14,000 plus, napakaraming investments nun. Financial, time, efforts, intelligence, etc. Okay? So that is for pharmacodynamics. Type done if you are ready for the next slide. Okay, nice. Are you learning so far? Okay. So moving on, so check tayo sa pharmacodynamics. We were able to comprehend that a drug would produce an effect if it targets proteins or nucleic acids. However, meron tayong gap, again, meron tayong gap na nagse-separate pa rin sa drug at body. Take note everyone, nonsense ang effect ng gamot sa kanyang target protein or target nucleic acid if the drug did not reach these targets. Okay? Pag hindi siya nakarating. Kaya ang next question natin is, kahit powerful at selective ang gamot, how do we know if the drug reaches the target? Para malaman natin, again, how do we know if the drug reaches the target? Para malaman natin, for us to know that the drug has really reached its target, of course, we have to identify how the body processes the drug. How the body processes the drug. Kaya dyan papasok ang concept na anong ginagawa, what does the body do to the drug, what the body does to the drug. Kaya papasok dito ang concept na dynamics or kinetics. Is it D or K? Go. Very good. So papasok dyan ang concept na kinetics. That's why we have a denoted question for kinetics, what the body does to the drug. So our goal in pharmacokinetics, that is to design a drug so that it is capable of reaching the target. And by that, the drug will interact to the target, finally causing an effect. Okay? Finally causing an effect. Kaya you can never separate dynamics from kinetics. Kambal silang dalawa. Nalaman mong effective yung gamot pero hindi naman pala siya nakakarating doon sa pupuntahan niya. Nonsense lang din. Okay? Nalaman mong nakakarating yung gamot sa target pero wala naman siyang interaction sa target. Wala rin yun. Kaya they have to be studied both. Kailangan silang pag-aralan. That's why in each drug, out of 14,000 plus drugs that I introduced a while ago, there are dynamic profiles of the drug and there are kinetic profiles. They come together. Okay? That's why at this point, we will focus on pharmacokinetics. The way the body processes the drug, okay, tells us that pharmacokinetics dictates the fate of the drug. Okay? It dictates the fate of the drug. Can you tell me a synonym of the term fate? Ano ang synonym ng term na fate? Kahit isa lang. D. Ano yung D? Ano yung malapit na synonym ng fate? D. Destiny. Very good. Destiny. So in pharmacokinetics, we are identifying the destiny of the drug. And when we say fate of the drug, this is composed of the acronym ADME. Okay, this is composed of the acronym ADME, which means absorption, distribution, metabolism, and finally excretion. Kaya wag niyong kakalimutan kapag kinetics, ADME yon connected kay ADME. So in connection to that, we will discuss briefly kinetic considerations. However, please realize as well na meron kayong separate subject na kinetics. Kaya sa akin, superficial lang ang ibibigay ko. You have higher levels para maintindihan ang kinetics ng mas malalim. Okay? So with that, let me give you the overview of the drug's fate in our body. Particularly, this is applicable for a drug taken per orem. Ano meaning ng per orem? By mouth. Okay? So let me give you what's the fate of the drug if it is taken by mouth. So this figure explains briefly the fate of the drug. So let's say you took the drug by mouth. The drug in the case of a tablet, halimbawa of a tablet, before a drug will be absorbed, the drug would undergo drug release process. Drug release is also known as liberation. Okay, this is also known as liberation, wherein we tend to extract, we tend to get the active pharmaceutical ingredient away from the excipient. So in other words, in liberation, we we are releasing the API out of the whole tablet. Okay, out of the whole tablet. Did you get my point? Hmm? Okay, API ang kukunin niya. And then, uh, for API to be liberated, it must be dissolved. Okay, the drug product has to be dissolved. So take note, this solution is very helpful because the product of this solution is that ang gamot ay nasa aqueous solution. Okay, the drug is in its aqueous solution. So the product of the solution is that the drug is homogeneous already. It is in aqueous solution. So what's the importance of a drug in aqueous solution? Take note, everyone, that the drug in aqueous solution is the prerequisite. Okay, this is the prerequisite for drug absorption. Okay, this is the prerequisite. Sorry, this is the prerequisite for drug absorption. Type done if you're finished copying. Okay, good. So the drug is now in its aqueous solution. That's why it is now ready to be absorbed. Pag sinabi nating absorption naman, so let's focus on absorption. When we say absorption, this is the process of drug entry. Okay, this is the process of drug entry into the systemic circulation. Okay, this is the process of drug entry into the systemic circulation wherein the drug from the GI tract will now proceed to the bloodstream, sa dugo natin. Kaya you can tell that in this arrow, nakaturo na siya sa bloodstream. Okay, bloodstream. And we know that once a substance, a compound is found in the blood, it will now be circulated to the different parts of the body. So when we say circulated to different parts of the body, that is where distribution comes into play. Kaya sa ADME, after ng absorption, there is distribution. Basic lang naman ang distribution, ipapamigay. Ay ipapamigay sa different organs, ay ipapamigay ang gamot sa different organs and tissues. So the drug will be distributed to different organs and also tissues. That's why you can see also na it is nakaturo, nakapoint sa drug in tissues. And remember that, by the way, nakakasunod? Nakakasunod sa akin? Hmm? Malinaw pa yung boses ni sir? Okay, nice. For drug in tissues, take note class na tissues are the ones containing the proteins or the nucleic acids. Okay, these are the ones that possess proteins and nucleic acids. What do you know about proteins and nucleic acids? Are these potential targets by drugs? Yes or no? Yes. So by that, pag na-reach ang mga specific proteins and nucleic acids, that is the time that the drug would elicit its effect. Okay? That's the time that the drug would elicit its effect. So anong importance ng kinetics so far? Walang effect ang gamot kung hindi nakarating sa target. So kinetics is important. Dynamics is important as well because oo, nakarating sa tissue ang gamot, pero paano kung hindi powerful yung gamot? Wala ring effect yon. Kaya partner talaga sila. Naintindihan yung essence ng kinetics and dynamics together? Okay, continue natin. Sa ADME, ano na lang ang hindi nadidiscuss sa ADME? M and E. Okay? And M and E. So discuss natin ngayon ang M. After the drug has done its job, syempre hindi naman siya perpetual or forever inside our body. There is a mechanism held by our body to finally remove the drug after it performed its task. Kaya papasok dyan ang process called elimination. So proceed tayo everybody sa process called elimination. So in elimination, this is a collective term, okay, covering two kinetic processes. Those are metabolism and excretion. Okay? Elimination is composed, again, of processes, metabolism, and excretion. So when we say metabolism, later we will discuss metabolism, but this is basically composed of different chemical reactions, chemical reactions to make the drug inactive. Okay, this is the total sum of different chemical reactions in the body para maging inactive ang gamot. And once the drug is said to be inactive, it is now ready for excretion process. So pag sinabi naman nating excretion process, this is the functional loss of the drug from the body. A functional loss of the drug from the body. So naialis na yung gamot. So with that, natapos nating ipaliwanag or i-discuss kung ano ba ang destiny ng gamot sa katawan natin mula intake hanggang paglabas. That is excretion. So that's ADME. Kinetics po ang nagko-cover dyan. Can I have some reactions sa Zoom if naintindihan? Can I have a thumbs up? Okay, good. Next, pwede na tayo sa next slide. Okay, so continue natin. So let's continue our discussion with pharmacokinetic considerations. Before we discuss officially each kinetic step, okay, each kinetic process, let us start first with liberation. This is often applicable for drugs taken by mouth, most especially, okay, most especially, and in some cases, topical administration, okay, and in some cases, topical administration. Now, sa admin natin, ay sa liberation rather, I think nasabi ko kanina kung ano yung ating AKA or another term for that. So ano yung another term natin? That is DR. Ano yung DR? Okay, drug release. So that is drug release. So ang goal ng drug release or liberation is to extract the API from the dosage form. Okay? This can be done. Okay? This can be done via dissolution process. Okay? Via dissolution process. And as I've said, na-discuss na natin to kanina, once the drug underwent dissolution, we can achieve the product that is needed or required for absorption. And that is solution, aqueous solution. Okay? However, to be able to control the process of drug release, diffusion must be considered. So in diffusion, we will no longer focus on diffusion kasi mas madidiscuss ito sa kinetics na talaga na subject. Ay wala siyang direct implications sa medicinal chemistry, lalo na in the interest of time. Okay, that's liberation. So in short, ito lang yung tandaan nyo. Okay, ito yung tandaan nyo sa liberation. API, and then aqueous solution, and that's the time na ready na ang gamot for drug absorption. Remembering drug absorption, this is the process of drug entry into the systemic circulation. Di ba? Na-discuss natin siya kanina. Okay, this is defined as the process of drug entry into the bloodstream. Now, meron tayong iba't ibang considerations sa gamot depending on the route of admin. Pinaka-complicated, the most complicated route is oral because there are numerous barriers. Maraming possible hindrances for an orally administered drug to enter the blood. That's why we have to focus on this. Okay? Now, kapag oral administration, if you will imagine, if the drug is taken by mouth, ang kanyang journey will start from the mouth and then esophagus, and then yun na nga, stomach, etc., etc. In short, GI tract. Kaya we have to focus in the GI tract. Note everyone that in the GI tract, we have two absorption environments available. Okay? In the GI tract, we have two absorption environments available. When I talk of absorption environment, these are the tasked organs that could transmit the drug na makapasok sa blood. Okay? So this includes the following. First, we have the stomach. Okay? First, we have the stomach. And then second, we have the small intestine. How are we going to differentiate stomach from the small intestine? Number one, ang stomach, note that it has a pH ranging from 1.5 to 2, okay, during busog state, okay, during fed state, because pag kumakain tayo, it requires more production and release of hydrochloric acid. Kaya ang tendency, mas bumababa ang pH. And then relatively, tumataas ng kaunti pag fasted or gutom. But altogether, ang realization natin dito, ang stomach ay merong acid or basic environment kung i-generalize natin. Yes, very good. So overall, we can infer that the stomach has an acidic environment. There is an implication. Mamaya, madidiscuss natin kaya ko to sinabi. Okay? What about for small intestine? Ang small intestine, considerably ang small intestine ay may basic environment. And between the two, the main site of absorption, the organ that is capable of absorbing more of the drug, that is the small intestine, because of its anatomical features. Number one, ang anatomical feature ng small intestine is that mataas ang kanyang surface area. Okay, surface area. Because of its anatomical structure, presence of villi and microvilli. Again, because of the presence of villi and microvilli. You can check sa Google kung ano itsura ng villi and microvilli. But ang point lang yan is, mataas ang surface area, mas ma-absorb, mas mahihita, mas mahihigop ang gamot. Okay? Mas mataas ang surface area, greater absorption. So take note of that. And aside from that, compared to the stomach, greater perfusion is observed in the small intestine. Okay? Greater perfusion. Are you familiar to the term perfusion? Honest to goodness, yes or no? Or have you heard it at least? Okay, very good. I want an honest answer. That is very good. Okay? So no. Pag sinabi nating perfusion, blood supply. Okay? Pag sinabi na ang isang organ o isang parte ng katawan, that organ is well perfused, mayaman siya sa dugo. Okay, mayaman siya sa dugo. Na kapag hiniwa mo ng konti, dugo siya agad. Okay? Yun yung ibig sabihin. Maraming ugat, so maraming dugo. So ang small intestine compared to the stomach, it has high blood supply. Question, common sense, if rich sa blood supply ang small intestine, do you think it's easier or harder for it to transmit its contents sa ating bloodstream? Easier, yes. Kaya greater absorption. Did you get that? Okay. Kaya sa ating katawan, whether drug or food, ang pinakamagaling mag-absorb ng gamot ay ang small intestine. Okay? So let's continue. I have some pen and board discussion here so you can listen while copying. Okay? Take note, class, we have a general principle based on kinetics about absorption of drugs. As a general rule, may mga attributes ang gamot para malaman natin if it will be absorbed. There are attributes of a drug na masasabi natin if it is absorbed. Okay, number one, a drug is absorbed in the cells if it is lipophilic. Okay? The drug will be absorbed if it is said to be lipophilic. Pag sinabi lipophilic, oil or water-loving, apparently it's oil. Okay? Oil-loving. Ang rationale behind this is that like dissolves like. Our cell membrane, the cell membrane is lipophilic, so it will accept its similar characteristic like the drug na lipophilic. Okay? Next, a drug in its unionized form, a drug in its unionized form will also be absorbed. When we say unionized, uncharged, hindi pa siya nag-ionize, hindi pa siya nagdi-dissociate, no cations or anions are observed. Ay unionized ang tawag doon. Can you follow? Unionized. Okay? Next, we also have nonpolar. Okay? If the drug is said to be nonpolar, it is said to be absorbed as well. So these are the attributes para ang gamot ay masabi nating maa-absorb siya. Okay? On the other hand, a drug is excreted, okay, hindi ma-favor ang absorption or if it will be it it is excreted or it will be excreted if it possesses the following attributes. Well, these attributes are antonyms of the ones stated previously. So kabaliktaran lang. O can you tell me what are the kabaliktarans of these terms or attributes sa absorb? O sa lipophilic, ano sa tingin nyo? Bukod sa lipophobic, ano pa ang naiisip nyong synonym? Antonym rather. Very good. Hydrophilic. Ay hydrophilic. Second, unionized. Ano kaya? Ionized. Okay? Ano kabaliktaran ng non-polar? Polar. Very good. So ang gamot ay ma-excrete naman if it is hydrophilic, ionized, polar. Okay? So yan ang difference ng absorbed and excreted drug if we want to predict. Okay? If we want to predict. Naintindihan? Okay. So tandaan, pag-absorb, LUNA pala tandaan dito. Okay, LUNA. Yan yung acronym. O yung mnemonic. Okay, mnemonic. And then, HYPE. HYPE naman kapag excreted. Gets by LUNA and HYPE? Gets? Can we proceed? Okay, nice. So continue natin. Now, let's focus also to drugs. Remember, class, that drugs in general are weak electrolytes. Okay? These are weak electrolytes. So that's why drugs could exist as either weak acids, they can exist as weak acids or weak bases. They can exist as either weak acids or weak bases. What's the importance of telling you this? By knowing that a drug is a weak acid or a weak base, we can predict if it will be ionized or if it will be unionized. In other words, malalaman natin based sa kanilang feature kung sila ba ay may excrete or ma-absorb. Okay? So this is the ruling. Okay, this is the ruling. Makinig ha. Number one, if the drug if the drug is a weak acid, and if it is exposed to an environment na similarly acidic, pag both ang kanilang characteristic, the result is the drug will be unionized. Okay, the result is that ang gamot ay unionized. Tell me, if unionized, what's your realization? Will the drug be absorbed or excreted? Okay, very good. Absorb. Okay. Next, if a weakly basic drug, is exposed to a basic environment or basic medium, the result as well is unionized, which will tell us na ma-absorb ang gamot. Okay? Ma-absorb. So in short, pag parehas, absorb. Okay? Absorb. Now, anong relevance nito sa mga absorption environments? Okay, what's the relevance? By knowing the acidity or basicity of the absorption environment, we can actually predict if the drug in the stomach or in the small intestine will be absorbed or excreted. Okay? So let's apply that. Apply natin. Halimbawa, if an acidic drug is absorbed, saan dapat siya ma-exposed well? Is it in the stomach or in the small intestine? Answer. Very good. Stomach. Okay, stomach. Nagigets ba ako? Ha? Okay. Now, ang basic drug, saan nyo siya nape-predict? Mape-predict na ma-absorb? Small intestine. Very good. Small intestine. And then, pwede na tayo mag-continue, guys? Okay, and then take note, everybody, kapag naman baliktad, when I say baliktad, the characteristic or the property of the drug opposes with the environment, the effect is ionized. Tell me, what is ionized? Absorbed or excreted? Okay, very good. Excreted. Okay? So let's apply. Okay? Let's try to apply this concept. I have An impromptu question. Isang tanong lang para mabilis tayo. Impromptu to ha, so medyo mabagal. Pakinggan nyo mabuti ha. Ang choices lang absorb, or sorry, true or false. Okay, true or false ang choices. Are you ready? Okay. So this is the question. Listen. A weekly basic drug is absorbed in the small intestine because it exists in its lipophilic, unionized, and polar form. True or false? Yes, very good. It's false. Why false? Ano nagpamali na word? Yes, wow, ang galing naman. Okay, nice, nice, nice. Okay, very good. So, it must be, instead of polar, it must be non-polar. Do we need to apply Luna, the concept of Luna here? Yes, okay, very good. So, unionized siya. Can we continue, guys? Okay. Next, actually na-discuss ko na to sa inyo. Ito na rin yung sinabi ko, more absorbed or unionized pag parehas acid. Did you get that? Readily excreted pag ionized wherein different ang absorption environment and also yung drug in terms of pH and pKa respectively. Okay? So yan po ang consideration, general considerations natin pag orally administered. Moving on. Paano naman kapag parenteral administration? Of course, sa tingin nyo pag parenteral, less or more issues sa absorption? Hmm? Less, very good. Kasi it will bypass our GI tract, so less complication sa stomach, sa small intestine, sa pH, etc. Okay? So in parenteral administration, the drug is directly injected into the bloodstream, kaya readily absorbed siya, fast onset of effect. Okay? Examples of this are intravenous or IV, intramuscular, subcutaneous, intraspinal, and intracerebral. So this is quite easy for you to understand. Okay? Next, another important consideration is absorption of drug in the brain. Okay, in the brain. Guys, ang brain natin, again, our brain has an anatomical barrier. The anatomical barrier of the brain is called the triple B or blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is composed of tightly joined epithelial cells. So when we say tightly joined epithelial cells, for example, these are the cells of the blood-brain barrier. So pag sinabi nating tightly joined epithelial cells, limited yung spaces na makikita nyo sa pagitan ng mga cells sa blood-brain barrier. So anong implication niyan? The implication is that there is no room for hydrophilic drugs to enter. Kasi ang daanan lang ng mga hydrophilic compounds ay yung butas eh. Since ang blood-brain barrier, it has tightly joined cells, no pores, walang galaw, walang daanan ang mga hydrophilic compounds, kaya ang ultimate realization dito, ang tinatanggap lang niyang gamot, lipophilic. Okay? Tinatanggap niya lang gamot ay lipophilic. Kaya sa utak natin, usually ang mga may CNS effects or brain effects, mga lipophilic drugs, highly lipophilic drugs. Those that are less lipophilic to nearly hydrophilic cannot penetrate through the blood-brain barrier. Naintindihan? Okay. So overall, we are finished with absorption. So recall tayo sa absorption. Absorption is the process of drug entry into the bloodstream. Question, after absorption, where do you expect yung gamot? Nasaan na siya located? Pagpasok, nasa na siya? Nasa blood na siya, tama? Nasa bloodstream. Take note, in the process of distribution, this involves movement of the drug from the bloodstream going to different organs and tissues. The drug is being incorporated with the blood. So what's our inference there? Since the drug is incorporated with the blood, whatever happens to the blood, drug follows. Kung saan makarating ang gamot, kung saan makarating ang dugo, nandun ang gamot. Tandaan niyo yan. Okay? Kaya ang major consideration natin sa drug distribution is blood flow. Okay, blood flow. Although meron pa tayong isa that is protein binding. Okay, also we have protein binding, pero ano na lang to ha, I'll just leave this to your pharmacology teacher kasi mas related to sa pharmacology and kinetics. Sa medicinal chemistry, hindi masyado. Yung dinidiscuss ko ngayon sa medchem, yung directly applicable sa ating course. Okay? Blood flow. Remember that blood flow is also perfusion, right? Perfusion. Tandaan, the higher the perfusion, the greater the distribution. As simple as that. Pag mas perfused ang isang organ, greater distribution. So yan ang tatandaan nyo. So for example, meron tayong dalawang organs here, lungs and bones. For instance lang, meron tayong organs like lungs and bones. Where do you think alin kaya sa dalawa? Which between the two do you think na mas maraming distributed drugs? Sa lungs or sa bones? Lungs, kasi mas perfused siya. Okay, mas perfused. Naintindihan? O di ba basic lang siya? Okay? So yun yung ibig sabihin ng distribution. Okay? And ano ba ang ultimate goal ng distribution? What's the ultimate goal of distribution? Anong importance ng distribution? Bakit kailangan ma-distribute ang gamot? Yes, para makarating sa target. That's right. Remember that the ultimate goal of distribution is drug drug delivery to its site of action. Okay? So that is drug delivery to the target site. Do you expect na may effect kapag nakarating sa target? Yes or no? Yes, okay. So as simple as that. Okay? So let's say, nakarating, marami tong considerations ha, pero ibang subjects na ang bahala doon. We will focus more on the drugs themselves later on. I'll just giving you some insights. So after the drug has done its job, it's now ready to be eliminated. What did I tell you about elimination? How many processes ang covered ng elimination? One or two? Two, what are those? Metabolism. Ano yung E? Excretion, that's right. Kaya at this point, let's proceed to drug metabolism. Ready na ba sa metabolism? Yes or no? Nandyan pa kayo ha? Malapit na mag-time, 30 minutes na lang. Goal natin, sige, ang module 2 bukas na lang. Tapusin ko lang yung module 1 today. Okay? So start tayo sa drug metabolism. Drug metabolism is also known as biotransformation. Basically, when we say drug metabolism, this is the process of chemical conversion, of a drug into its inactive form. Okay, to its inactive form. So in general, ang biotransformation is the process of chemical conversion of drugs to make them inactive. When we say the drug is inactive, dyan napapasok ang HIP, HIP leading to E. Naalala niyo yung HIP leading to E o hype kanina? Yung hydrophilic, ionized, recall? Okay, so very good. So the drug will be inactivated, thus ready for excretion. So that's the major goal of drug metabolism. Kailangan ng chemical conversion. So focusing on chemical conversion, para magkaroon ng chemical conversion, there has to be reactions. There has to be chemical reactions. And inside our body, there are specialized proteins that can mediate different chemical reactions inside the body. So ano sa tingin nyo, anong klaseng mga proteins ang nagme-mediate ng chemical reactions sa ating katawan? Diyan papasok ang mga enzymes. Kaya important, very important ang mga enzymes in promoting metabolism of drugs. Okay? Pwede na tayo mag-continue? Okay, so focusing on enzymes, inside our body, majority or highly concentrated ang enzymes in the liver. Okay? Highly concentrated ang enzymes in the liver. That's right, highly concentrated ang enzymes in the liver. That's why we deem the liver as the main site of drug metabolism. Okay, main site of drug metabolism. So somehow it's the counterpart of small intestine pag orally administered ang gamot. Okay? So that is the liver. All substances, so basahin natin yung nasa PowerPoint, all substances in the circulatory system such as drugs, metabolites, and even nutrients will pass through the liver. So what do you expect pag dumaan sa liver ang gamot? Pag dumaan sa liver, anong meron sa liver? May enzymes. Kaya do you expect na ang gamot ay mame-metabolize eventually? Yes or no? Yes, okay, that's right. So that's the concept of metabolism. Okay? So to inactivate, okay, to inactivate. However, take note, not all the time ang fate ng gamot after metabolism is inactivation. There are cases wherein the effect of metabolism is instead activation. So this is applicable, okay, this is applicable for the so-called prodrugs. Okay? That is for the drugs called prodrugs. When we talk of prodrugs, these are agents that are initially inactive. Okay? These are initially inactive that via metabolism, they become active. Okay? They become active. So yan ang prodrugs. So they become active after metabolism. So this somehow uh, breaks the general rule of metabolism, that is inactivation. So some examples are azathioprine, which is an immunosuppressant. For it to become an active immunosuppressant, it has to be converted into 6-mercaptopurine. And then for the antiviral acyclovir, through metabolism of acyclovir, it becomes acyclovir triphosphate, which is also activated form of acyclovir. So that's the concept of bioactivation. Tandaan guys, this is just tip of the iceberg kasi meron tayong specific module for metabolism. Mas mapapalalim natin ang metab. Okay? Ito ano lang to, overview lang. Module 5 ang metabolism. I think Monday natin madidiscuss yun. Let's see. So moving on, uh, also for biotransformation, most molecules absorbed from the GI tract enter the portal vein and are initially transported to the liver. So what do we mean by this concept? So it goes this way. So for instance, a drug is taken by mouth. Okay? For example, a drug is taken by mouth. So you can imagine that the drug will pass through the GI tract and therefore be absorbed. Okay, be absorbed. So ine-expect natin, I hope you can still follow me, ine-expect natin na after absorption, ang gamot ay makakarating sa systemic circulation ready for distribution. However, in reality, between the actual absorption and presence of the drug in the bloodstream, dumadaan ang gamot initially sa liver. Okay, dumadaan ang gamot sa liver. Anong sabi natin? Anong marami sa liver? Anong marami sa liver? Enzymes. Okay? Anong mangyayari pag may presence ng enzymes? Do you think the drug before it reaches the blood could be metabolized first? Yes or no? Yes. So ang point ng slide na to is once a drug taken by mouth, okay, taken by mouth enters the GI tract prior to distribution, it can be prematurely metabolized. Okay? It can be prematurely metabolized. So there could be premature metabolism. And the phenomenon being described is called first pass effect. Okay, that is called first pass effect. Are you familiar to first pass effect? Okay, so that's good na narinig nyo siya. So ang gamot ay nag-undergo ng first pass effect. So ang first pass effect ay tinatawag ding pre-systemic, pre-systemic metabolism. Okay, again, this is also known as pre-systemic metabolism. Honest to goodness, na-gets ba yung term na pre-systemic metabolism? Hmm? Okay, very good. What about the others? May mga best in recitation pero may mga hindi ako nakikita. O yung iba, kumusta kayo dyan? Hmm? Okay pa? Okay, so good. So again, this is also known as pre-systemic metabolism because bago maging significant yung amount ng gamot doon sa blood, dumadaan siya sa liver and liver possesses numerous enzymes. So prematurely metabolize siya. Okay? Question, anong ine-expect nating mangyayari kapag nag-undergo ang gamot ng first pass effect? Sa tingin nyo ba tataas o bababa ang gamot na available sa blood? Taas or baba? Very good. So that causes reduction in the so-called bioavailability. Okay? So that causes reduction in drugs bioavailability. What can you expect ultimately if there is reduction in bioavailability? Will the drug be still therapeutic, toxic, or subtherapeutic? Okay, so the drug potentially could be subtherapeutic. Kaya actually problema ang first pass effect. And tawag dito, we cannot avoid that. Kasi isipin nyo guys, ganito siya. Isipin nyo, ang first pass effect, yan ay physiology na ng katawan natin. Okay? Siguro may isip nyo ang isang paraan para ang first pass effect ay maiwasan, huwag magbigay ng gamot by mouth. Pwede naman yun actually, gawin mong parenteral ang gamot. Pero hindi natin maikakaila na ang by mouth is the most convenient route. Yan pa rin ang pinakagusto ng lahat. Kaya we still have to overcome first pass effect. O sa tingin natin, ano yung usual remedies or means para ma-overcome yung problem na to na hindi mo maiiwasan 100%? Usually ang ginagawa ng mga manufacturers, tinataasan ang dose ng gamot available in the market. Okay? Tinataasan nila ang gamot dose of the drug available in the market. That's why if you will compare the dose available ng tablet sa ampule, sa tingin nyo, sino mas malaki ang dose available? Yung ampule na parenteral o tablet? Tablet. Kasi ang point nun, may allowance na sisirain lang ng first pass effect. Gets ba? Hmm? Okay. Or in some cases, bukod sa pagpapataas ng dose, change the route of admin. Okay, change the route of admin. Okay, change the route of admin. So ang example natin ng scenario ng changing the route of admin is the one indicated in the slide. That is lidocaine. FYI, ang lidocaine, aware kayo na ang lidocaine ay local anesthetic, di ba? Pero aside from being a local anesthetic, anti-arrhythmic din siya. Cardiac drug din siya. However, it was discovered that lidocaine undergoes extensive first pass effect. That is, 60% of the drug administered is being destroyed by the liver. Kaya, 40% lang ang available, making lidocaine by mouth subtherapeutic. Okay? Making lidocaine as an antiarrhythmic taken by mouth subtherapeutic. Kaya anong practice sa lidocaine pag anti-arrhythmic? Ang lidocaine, pag anti-arrhythmic, intravenous ang administration niya. Hindi siya by mouth. Are you learning? Gets nyo? Okay. So ano pang example? Alam nyo ba yung epinephrine? You know epinephrine? Yes. Ang epinephrine, walang tablet na epinephrine kasi nag-undergo din siya ng extensive first pass effect. So ang ginawa kay epinephrine, parenteral. Pwedeng intravenous, pwedeng subcutaneous. Ang point, basta ma-bypass ang liver. Tinatalunan ang liver. Okay? Di ba sa Bulacan ang daming bypass roads? Ano ba meaning ng bypass? Di ba talunan yung mga traffic na places? Okay? Yun yung ibig sabihin ng bypassing the liver. Kaya may mga routes na iwas ang liver, kaya okay. Naalala niyo yung IV kanina? Di ba yung IV maganda absorption niya kasi bypass ang first pass effect. Talon sa liver. Gets? Ha? Okay, next. Medyo malapit na tayong matapos. Okay na to, na-discuss ko na to. First pass effect, so talunan na natin siya. Punta tayo sa alteration of enzymic action. Nandito na ba ang lahat? Okay, good. So yan, mga keyboard warriors. Sulat, type, ayan. So, nice. So let's proceed to alterations of enzyme action. Key concept muna, key concept. Remember, enzymes are the ones capable of metabolizing drugs. So the point here is, if we will alter the activity of enzymes, metabolism could be affected as well. Okay? If we will modify the activity of enzymes, we can alter metabolism. So there are two possible ways to alter metabolism or to alter enzymic action. Number one, we can induce activity of enzymes. So when we say inducing activity of enzymes, we tend to stimulate enzymic action. So we are enhancing the activity of enzymes. Question, if enhance ang activity ng enzymes, enhance or reduce metabolism? Enhance or reduce metabolism of drugs. Very good. Kaya nakasulat dito, increased metabolism. Question, pag enhance metabolism of drugs, mataas o mababa ang inactive form ng gamot in general? Mataas o mababa ang inactive form ng gamot in general? Come again, come again. Pag sinabing inactive, yan ba ang product ng metabolism in general? Yes or no? Yan ba ang product ng metabolism in general? Yes. Sino ang gumagawa niyan? Ang mga enzymes, right? Sabi sa senaryo, marami kang enzymes na nag-metabolize. Question, dumami ba ang inactive? Yes or no? Yes, okay. Yes. Ano ba sagot ko kanina? Yes din ata. Mataas din ata. O basta, ang sagot ay increase. Okay, very good. Now, pag mataas ang inactive product, kumusta ang concentration ng gamot sa plasma? Kumusta ang concentration ng gamot sa plasma? Mababa. Okay, mababa. I am referring to the active one. Gets ba ang enzyme induction? Hmm? Okay. And then, on the contrary, kabaliktaran lang naman ang enzyme inhibition. So, ang enzyme inhibition, decreased metabolism, sustained ang drug levels in the body or in the blood. Okay? So, yun yung enzyme induction and inhibition. Disclaimer lang ha, ito ay general concept lang. May specific subject to discuss this. Ako, introduction lang. Okay? Let's continue. Another important concept in the process of drugs or fate of the drug is through enterohepatic recirculation. Pakilagyan ng re, okay? So enterohepatic recirculation. This is also known as biliary recycling. Okay? This is also known as biliary recycling. Now, ano ba yung dapat nating malaman sa biliary recycling? Number one, ang biliary recycling ay isang fate or isang physiological process sa ating katawan involving bile acid. Okay? Normal ito nangyayari involving bile acid. Particularly, in biliary recycling, instead of excreting the whole amount of bile acid, there could be recycling or reabsorption of bile acid. Okay? In short, ang effect ng bile acid sa biliary recycling, or sorry, ang effect ng biliary recycling sa bile acid, reabsorption. So anong connection nito sa gamot? There are drugs like, for example, oral contraceptive pills. Okay? Contraceptive pills that follow bile acids fate. Okay? Follow bile acids fate. In short, since sinusunod niya ang fate ng bile acid, nare-reabsorb din yung medication. Okay? Nare-reabsorb. So, paano siya nangyayari? I-explain natin briefly via this figure. Okay? Kung ano man ang nangyayari sa bile acid, susunod ang gamot. Okay? Nare-reabsorb siya. So for example, in the lower ileum of the small intestine, by the way, ready na ba makinig? Okay. So for the lower ileum of the small intestine, bago siya i-excrete in the large intestine, majority of the drug and the bile acid will pass through the portal vein. Okay, portal vein. So in short, instead of uh, transmitting the whole bile acid, the full amount of bile acid and the drug into the large intestine, bumabalik siya sa portal vein. Kaya tendency, babalik sa systemic circulation. So dadaan sa liver, okay, dadaan sa liver. And of course, highly vascularized ang liver, madidistribute na naman siya sa iba't ibang parts ng katawan. Okay? So that's the impact of enterohepatic recirculation, reabsorption of drugs. And then finally, okay na tayo class sa metabolism. So to finally close pharmacokinetic processes, of course, we have excretion. You have excretion. Mind you, class, that in excretion, the prerequisite for a drug to be excreted in general, dapat ma-metabolize muna siya. Okay? In general. Okay? In general. Although there are cases that the drug is being excreted unchanged. Although may mga cases that a drug is being excreted unchanged. So when you pag may nabasa kayo ng mga drug literatures at nakalagay na drug excreted unchanged, ibig sabihin na ilalabas siya right away. Kasi may mga portions na hydrophilic na agad. Okay, hydrophilic na agad. Okay? So we have different mechanisms of drug excretion. So we have via the urine, which is the dominant or most abundant, okay, most abundant, meaning majority of drugs, urinary excretion ang fate. Although we have biliary excretion, although limited lang, and then other excretory organs like the sweat glands, the mammary glands, and then the lungs. So we have different processes of renal clearance. Number one is glomerular filtration, wherein unbound drug. So pag sinabi nating unbound drug, that is already excretable form, which is the free drug, which is passively filtered by the glomerulus. Tubular secretion, that involves secretion or the drug is actively secreted. And finally, mai-incorporate sa urine. So ilalabas na siya. Although there is a urinary process or renal process wherein the drug could be reabsorbed pa din. And that is called tubular reabsorption process. Okay? That is called tubular reabsorption wherein the drug is passively reabsorbed back in the blood. So these are the different urinary processes. So meron tayong filtration, secretion, and reabsorption. Okay? So basically yan ang excretion process. So taken all together, I think we were able to finish ADME. Okay, natapos natin ang ADME. Absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. Do you understand? Okay, so very good. So that finally ends basic principles of medicinal chemistry. Brief recall, okay, brief recall about basic principles. First, if you will reflect on our lecture earlier, we were able to understand what does medicinal chemistry mean. Basically, ang medchem, discovery of drugs. Okay? And then consideration about the drug is that the drug, for it to produce an effect, it has to target the body. Okay? And the body has to accept well the drug. Kaya there is kinetics and also dynamics. So since ang dynamics ay madidiscuss sa pharmacology at sa mga succeeding modules natin, lalo na sa module 6 hanggang 10, hindi ko muna siya diniscuss kasi it varies depending on the drug. Siyempre, iba-iba sila na effects. Now, yung body to drug ang prioritize natin right now, which is kinetics. So in which we discuss ADME. So ito basically ang contents ng ating basic principles. Nasundan, guys? Okay, next. Since natapos natin ang basic principles, dito tayo sa review. Actually, sa review, wala akong i-discuss dito kasi since this is higher level na ng pharmacy course, marami tayo mga kailangang baon na mga knowledge like in biochem and also in orgchem. So dito sa review of functional groups, meron akong isa-send na supplemental notes sa inyo about different functional groups, reviewer in short, reviewer, na pwede nyong i-browse parate. Okay, pwede nyong i-browse parate whenever magagamit nyo siya. And I'm telling you, you have to recall them because meron tayong mga tasks sa Module 1 that requires you to review the functional groups. Kaya later this afternoon, pag nag-post ako ng announcement, ang ine-expect nating mare-receive nyo ay yung ebook ng OrgMeds book and then yung supplemental notes ng functional groups. Is that clear? Hmm? Okay. So yun yung inyong mga gagamitin. So taken all together, so stop ko na yung recording.